Although it may seem a bit unconventional to talk about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in association with the concept of Black Power, in actuality, King is a central figure in the development of Black Power in America. You have to remember that King, although he was a lightning rod for criticism by Black Powerites, he serves as one path to possible racial equality, a path that many Black Powerites considered made him a member of the establishment, so to speak. King's position on the idea of nonviolent civil disobedience was considered to be cowardly by many of the aspiring mid 60s Black Powerites. One thing is for sure that many urban Blacks, regardless of if they were in the South or if they were in places like Detroit, New York City, Oakland, Oakland in particular, found it cowardly and morally repugnant to be avoiding conflict with whites who were marauding through our communities. King's desire to integrate, and many of his detractors would say he wanted to go a step further than integration, to actually assimilate with the existing power structure, was a non-starter for them. And keep in mind, James Baldwin, the great social theorist, the greatest social theorist, I would argue, that this world has ever known, asked the still reverberating question of who wants to integrate into a burning house? King would later himself say, but you got to remember, Dr. King is shifting. King will say, I feel as if I'd integrated into a burning house, especially by 1965, where we have the after effect of Lyndon Baines Johnson signing the Voting Rights Act. He signed the Civil Rights Act in 64, the Voting Rights Act in 65. Days later, Watts explodes. So the idea of Black Power rights being tired of integration politics, of gradualism, is historically verifiable. It's everywhere you look if you're looking for any information surrounding Black Power. One of the central figures, and he is in many ways, it's ironic that he's become so important, is the brother James Meredith, who's the first to integrate the crown jewel of the Mississippians' heart, Ole Miss. James Meredith, who would eventually matriculate from Ole Miss, has this belief that his people, meaning the people of Mississippi, are still afraid of white folk in Mississippi. So he's going to embark upon what is known as the March Against Fear, where he plans to walk from Memphis all the way to Jackson. And if you ever driven that, it's an arduous drive, let alone a walk. But Meredith wants to register people on his way there. Once again, operating out of the old guard of political participation, improving the Black status within the existing system. Meredith will be shot on the first day. And the initial reports go out that Meredith is actually dead. He's not dead. Meredith has been taken to Memphis and is recuperating in the hospital. However, the who's who of the civil rights movement are going to descend upon Memphis because there is a fear that if the movement stops as a result of white violence, that will be a message to white bigots and racists to open the doors and pour horrific violence upon us, because that would be the recipe to get us to stop protesting and agitating for full citizenship. So the march must go on. And it's during this continuation of the march that we're here to talk about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what occurred there. King is steeped in a battle, most notably with the young SNCC firebrand Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, for my cultural nationalist brothers and sisters. And they're arguing about what should be the proper direction of the movement. King is still tethered to the idea of integration. Whereas Carmichael is advocating for Black power, an element of Black nationalism, which is going to be beautifully articulated in the book with James Hamilton. Things come to a head with this march when Dr. King has to leave to go give a speech or something, a television appearance. And one of the most overlooked figures of Black Power, a brother by the name of Willie Ricks, also known today as Mukasa. He was a lead scout for SNCC, and he would go ahead of the march and he would teach these little slogans and things to the people, usually Black sharecroppers that were in the city that the march was approaching, so that when the march arrived, they knew what was expected of them. They knew, what was to be said. And Ricks is going to change the slogan. The slogan used to be, "What do you want? Freedom. When do you want it? Now." Ricks changes it to, "What do you want? Black power. When do you want it? Now." So as the march approaches Greenwood, Mississippi, which most civil rights activists would tell you that was SNCC territory, also known as the birthplace of the blues. Robert Johnson, the great bluesman, is actually buried there. Ricks has set the stage for the movement to, in many ways, be taken over, be hijacked, be directed in a new direction. So when Stokely Carmichael, who had been arrested the day before, arrives in Greenwood, the stage has been set, and he gets on stage, and he's received a lot of credit for this, for standing up and saying, "What do you want? Black power. When do you want it? Now." This alters the movement in a way that it'll never return to its former self. You have to remember that we had a interracial movement going on at this moment, that there was still a lot of hope going on within the movement. That hope is largely gone, and you will see a explosion of the movement. You'll see white males go. They're going to be dealing with anti-Vietnam. You're going to see white women who've been trained within the civil rights movement go towards feminism. You're going to see many young Black folk go towards Black power. You're going to see Black women eventually end up repudiating the idea of white feminism and creating womanism. This is a shift. And along with this shift is a erroneous belief that Dr. King actually stood against the concept and the ideas of Black power. Nothing could be further from the truth. In truth, King, and I'm gonna expose you to King's words in a couple moments. King is going to offer support for the concept of Black power. Now, he's not going to do it in the way that a Ricks or a Carmichael or an H. Rap Brown would do. But if you read it and you listen to it, King's support is there. And King is going to say a couple things surrounding Greenwood. One, he's going to say that what white America is looking at right now with the rise of Black power is growing out of the frustrations of Black America regarding the slow pace of change. And he's also going to say that Black power is a quest for necessary power within the Black community. Let's review what King actually says. This is a direct quote. "Many of the young people proclaiming Black power today were but yesterday the devotees of Black-white cooperation and nonviolent direct action. If they are America's angry children today, this anger is not congenital. It is a response to the feeling that a real solution is hopelessly distant because of the inconsistencies, resistance, and faint-heartedness of those in power." And King continues, he's directly focused upon the political philosophy of Black power, one that most people are afraid to associate him with to this day. King says, and I quote again, Black power is a call for the pooling of Black financial resources to achieve economic security. Through the pooling of such resources and the development of habits of thrift and techniques of wise investment, the Negro will be doing his share to grapple with his problems of economic deprivation. If Black power means the development of this kind of strength within the Negro community, then it is a quest for basic, necessary, legitimate power. And that's coming from his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? So as we look at the tradition of Black power and we look at the Black intellectual tradition in the post-slavery period, we can't pigeonhole Dr. King and in many ways dismiss him in his contributions. We have to get past that and really delve into his words, into his work. Just a few thoughts about Dr. King and the idea of Black power that I wanted to share with you. Peace.